Om Jananim Saradam Devim Ramakrishnan Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhurmuhu. So today is today we'll be discussing the great master Sri Ramakrishna, as we do every alternate Sunday. It is either the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna or Sri Ramakrishna, the great master, so that the life and message of Sri Ramakrishna can be understood in the light of the message of Sri Ramakrishna can be understood in the light of his own life. That is the idea behind having this alternate class where we discuss the biography of Sri Ramakrishna, which is so beautifully written by Swami Shardanandji, who felt the need to write a very authentic, a very precise and a correct biography of Sri Ramakrishna, because before this biography was written, there were quite a few biographies written by some of the householder disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, Ramchandra Datta and others. And Swami Shardanandji and others felt that they had not done justice. They had perhaps discussed only one or two some aspects of the wonderful life of Sri Ramakrishna. They were not able to write a very satisfactory account of his all-encompassing life, which, according to Swami Vivekananda, was the culmination of 3,000 years, or say 2,000 years of Indian sadhana of the whole nation. It's not that he came to represent a particular sect, or he had come to interpret Hinduism in a particular way. He was the collective representative of all the spiritual thoughts that have been thought for hundreds and thousands of years in India. So you can, in one of the stotras describing Sri Ramakrishna, he says, the nectar of the entire Vedas, the essence of the entire Vedas and all the other scriptures that were inspired by the Vedas, Sri Ramakrishna held in his one body in full measure. He held it in full measure. He was the very personification of the spiritual traditions or the spiritual power, the spiritual ideas of an entire human race, you can say, and more particularly the Indian race or the Indian spiritual culture. He lived in his one life all the ideals that were developed in India. So, and also abroad. He also tried to practice other religious traditions as the founders of those particular religions had put forward by their own inspired lives. It was not the theological side of different religions that he studied, like any academic scholar would do. When you study comparative religion, you study as if you study the theology based on that particular religion, whereas Sri Ramakrishna lived the essence of each religion. That is the difference between academic scholars who make a comparative study of different religions. And Sri Ramakrishna was, in his personality, there was a wonderful harmony or synthesis, you can say, of all the spiritual traditions. Harmony, uh, spiritual harmony is fine because there are different tunes giving rise to harmony, different tunes which belong to the different sects of the world, different religious sects of the world. But synthesis is a better word because he took, it's not that he accepted he tolerated other religions or said that other religions are, I mean, more or less, I tolerate them because I have to maintain peace. That was not the idea. That is normally what Most of the religious adherents, they believe that I tolerate you, you also tolerate me, we will live. But that was not what Sri Ramakrishna came to harmonize. He said, you have to accept all religions as true, not just tolerate them. I mean, when you say accept all religions, the essence of all religions, if a dogmatic view of any religion is proposed or propounded, then one is not bound to follow those things. It is the essence that is more important than the dogmatic approach which says my ideas alone are true, and whoever follows my ideas or the religious ideas of my religion alone will reach the goal. That was not his idea. So anyway, the birth of a great soul, that is the chapter that we are going to discuss today. We saw how Sri Ramakrishna and Sri Ramakrishna's father as well as mother, they had this wonderful uh, vision before his birth, foretelling the birth of a great soul. So they knew, both his father and mother knew, that a great soul, the incarnation himself, based on what the visions that both Chandramani Devi and also Khudiram had. Uh, he had some wonderful visions in Gaya and some other hints he had got, whereas the mother had two visions which we discussed last time when she was worshipping the local Yogi, their Shiva temple belonging to the yogis. They call it Jugi, means yogi. So perhaps that Shiva temple was there for a long time in that village, Kamarpukur, and it was known as Jugeder Shiva Mandir. Jugeder means though belonging to the yogis. Yogi is known as Jogi or Jugi in Bengali. So the vision she had, the light that she saw emanating from that Shivalinga and entering her womb, and some other visions which she had. She had several divine visions, but she was very innocent and perhaps did not know the actual significance. But when she told these things to her husband Khudiram, and he also tallied it with the visions he had, so they knew some great soul is going to take birth. The very incarnation, though he was in the beginning, Khudiram was a little hesitant when he heard that he saw that divine vision where uh, the Lord of Gaya, Vishnu himself appeared in a vision and said, I am going to take birth in your house. He was a bit afraid. He said, how can we do your seva if the Lord himself comes? I don't have the means, because he was of very moderate means, having been deprived of his land and driven out of the original village Dere, as we saw. Dere was his original ancestral village, and because he refused to bear false witness, we knew how he had to come to Kamarpukur, just because of the noble generosity of Sukhlal Goswami, who knew of his wonderful truthful nature, that he would rather forfeit his house and land rather than speak an untruth. So he was deprived of his home, and he came to Kamarpukur, and his friend Sukhlal Goswami, who was a very noble person, asked him to stay in a spare house that he had, a small house, and gave him a small piece of land where he could cultivate and earn a living. Then, of course, after the birth of his elder son, they all, Ramkumar and Rameshwar, and daughters, Sri Ramakrishna was born much later. The others had already grown up and helped their father, Khudiram, in running the house. And they had very modest means. So when he first had the vision at Gaya, Gadadhar or Vishnu as Gadadhar appeared before him and said that I am very pleased by your devotion and I wish to be born in your house. So this innocent Khudiram said, if you are born, if the Lord himself is born, then will I be able to serve you properly? He said, I don't have the means to serve you perfectly. The Lord himself coming. So the Vishnu smilingly told him, you don't worry, all arrangements have been made. Whatever with devotion, whatever you offer me with devotion, I will accept it. So now the birth of a great soul, the description of how Sri Ramakrishna was born. When was he born? All these things are so beautifully, the divine birth has been explained now. Spring, the king of all seasons, had arrived after fall and winter. The weather was neither cold nor hot. This is in sometime in March. Sometimes the birthday falls, actually it was February, but sometimes the birthday of Sri Ramakrishna falls in March. Sometimes it falls in March, sometimes it is in February. So we see that this was the season, the spring season, the king of all seasons had arrived after fall and winter. The weather was neither cold nor hot, and all of creation pulsated with a new life. It was the 6th day of the pleasant month of Falgun. Falgun is the month according to the Bengali calendar, which falls between mid-February to mid-March. So as you know, the Indian calendar or the Hindu calendar, the dates vary. So every year the birthday of Sri Ramakrishna keeps on changing. Sometimes it is mid-February, after mid-February, sometimes it is mid-March also. So there was he was born in the month of Falgun, the 6th day of Falgun, and the biographer describes that day. Said upsurge of zeal, joy, and love was visible among the people. We have the descriptions of the wonderful birth of Sri Krishna and others. We find that when Sri Krishna was born, when the other incarnations were born, the whole nature seems to rejoice. So similarly in Kamarpukur, though this was a divine birth, very few people knew about all the visions, and perhaps nobody expected this. But there were some people, like the famous shepherds, who knew that Jesus is going to be born in Bethlehem. So similarly, here also, there was some kind of zeal, joy, and an atmosphere of love had encompassed all the people of Kamarpukur. The scriptures say, there is a beautiful verse in the Vedas, Madhuvata Ritayate. So Madhu means everything is sweet, the breeze is sweet, the water is sweet. I mean, there is sweetness everywhere. There is bliss, sweetness of bliss is there everywhere. Because we have in every created being, whether it is animate or inanimate, this is that Ananda aspect, the creative, the blissful aspect of the Lord is always present. The bliss of Brahman is always inside. So when Brahman himself decides to incarnate, incarnation is nothing but Brahman in human form. So when he incarnates, naturally brings to this divine planet, to this planet, the divine bliss that should have been our birthright, but we don't normally associate with that bliss. So whenever incarnations come, the place where they are born, or at least the atmosphere, the wonderful ambience changes, as it were. And the people, they found a strange kind of zeal, joy, and love in the air, atmosphere. So, and now the biographer says, does spring, this season, Falgun, which is a very joyful season because winter has just ended, everything is pulsating with life. So the author asks, Swami Shardanji asks, does spring have a little more of that divine bliss? That is why it brings so much joy everywhere in the world. Wherever we go, after spring, normally spring is the season which everybody waits for, especially in England and other places where it can be rather dark and cold in winter. Everybody is waiting for this. After both the fall and the winter, we are waiting for that spring season. So one day, that was the season which was being celebrated all over India, Falgun, and it was the 6th day. One day, one spring day, Chandra Devi, Sri Ramakrishna's mother, was cooking food for Raghuveer. You see, in those days, the households, both the husband and wife would together serve the Lord. They were so very orthodox Brahmins, so naturally they would not eat anything before offering it to Raghuveer, their Ishta. So naturally the wife had to cook. They took lot of pains to ensure that the minds and the body, everything is pure when they cook this food. And after offering it, only they eat that as prasad. So she was almost nearing the end of her pregnancy. And though she was experiencing celestial bliss in her heart, physically she was very exhausted. So she was a bit tired physically. Suddenly she realized that her physical condition was unpredictable. And if the labor pains start and the child is born, then who will prepare the Lord's offering? They were so concerned. Preparing the bhoga for offering to the Lord was such a important thing. So they did not want any trouble in that. I mean, they were very keen that under no circumstances that the regular offering to the Lord should suffer. They, even if they get a hint that there would be some obstruction, then they invite some relative or some person from the village, some woman from the village would come and help her if she fell sick. But they would not allow these houses where they offered bhoga with so much regularity that they could not tolerate if there is some irregularity. So somebody would cook a prasad, cook the food to be offered. They did not want the Lord to be without food even for a single day. So she was afraid that if the labor pains start now, then what will happen to the Lord's offerings? He was about to cook. So she was alarmed and she expressed her concern to her husband. So Kshudiram reassured her, said, "Don't fear. The Lord has promised me that he will never see to it that the worship of Raghuveer would be disturbed, because the Lord is coming with good portents. He's coming with a lot of, he's coming to create a new order. So how can he come and create any disorder by his birth?" So he says, "It is my firm conviction, you don't worry. Today you will certainly be able to manage the service of the Lord, and beginning from tomorrow I will ask Dhani." Dhani was a woman in the village who used to often come and offer her domestic help to Chandra Devi. So Dhani used to sometimes come whenever she was sick and help the family in preparing the food and other things. See that the timely offerings of food to the Lord did not suffer. So Chandra Devi then got reassured when her husband reassured her that you don't have to worry. You will be able to, you somehow finish the bhoga, the prasad, the bhoga which we'll offer as prasad, we will offer, and we'll have today's offerings. There won't be any problem. I'm sure the Lord would not cause that. Tomorrow I'll make arrangements. So everything happened as it had been predicted. There were no untoward incident happened. She didn't have labor pains, and she could wait till the next day. So the noon and evening offerings of Raghuveer were performed without any disturbance. And after supper, Kshudiram and Ram Kumar slept in one room. Dhani came, and she normally, as a midwife, she came and she and Chandra Devi slept in another room. So apart from the shrine of Raghuveer, the household consisted only of 2 huts and a kitchen. And a small thatched shed was there, where they used to keep the husking machine. And a wood burning stove, a wooden stove where wood would be used for boiling the rice. So everything was there in that small thatched shed. So because there was no other place available, this shed itself was to be used as a delivery room for the child. They didn't have spare rooms. In one room, he and his brother slept. In the other room, it was Dhani who came, Dhani Kamarani as she is known. She was a widow and she lived near. She used to come and help Chandra Devi very often. So she came and she also acted as the midwife. So anyway, about 12 minutes before dawn on the next day, the first day when she was apprehensive that she may give birth to the child on that day itself, Shudiram however said, don't worry, the Raghuvir will not come and at such a odd time. He will definitely come, he will make arrangements before he is born. So I'll call Dhani, and next day uh, Chandra Devi felt the first labor pain. So she immediately escorted Chandra Devi to that shed, that husking shed where rice used to be husked. And as soon as she lay down, she gave birth to a male child. After providing Chandra with the necessary help, Dhani turned her attention to the baby. But he had disappeared from where she had put him. So she was not aware. How did the child move? Alarmed, she turned up the flame of oil lamp and searched the entire hut. Somehow, by some mysterious process, the baby was covered with blood and fluid, had somehow slid over the floor and was lying in a wood burning stove, and he was full of ashes, because that is the place where they used to burn the wood and boil the paddy. So naturally there were a lot of ashes in that room, and the child had managed to cover its body with ashes. But the baby did not cry. So Dhani then carefully lifted the young child, young Gadadhar as he was known, washed him, and saw in the light of the lamp that he was a wonderfully handsome child who looked as if he was 6 months old. He was quite big in size compared to the young babies. He almost looked as if he was 6 months old. In the meantime, a few of Chandra's friends, including Prasanna and some women of the Laha family, had been summoned because they were expecting that the child will be born anytime. And when they arrived, Dhani told them the good news that at the auspicious and solemn moment before sunrise, it was a very, very auspicious moment when he was born. So Kshudiram's humble cottage reverberated with the sound of conch shells proclaiming to the world the advent of a great soul. So that is the system. Whenever a child is born on auspicious occasions like puja, the conch shell is blown. So she informed these people, and they all came and blew the conch shell and made a lot of noise, and that was the announcement that the Lord was born. So, being well versed in scriptures, Shudiram checked the astrological signs. That is what in India they do. As soon as the child is born, they see the time and calculate the moment, the exact moment, auspicious moment has to be recorded, and then they check the astrological signs based on of the newborn child, based on, and then they give them the names and many things. So astrology is a very important, and especially since Kshudiram himself was well versed in astrology, he saw that it was Wednesday on that day. The British, according to the English calendar, it was Wednesday 6th Wednesday, not 6th, 18th February on Wednesday. No, it was Wednesday according to the, because the Indian day starts a little late. So it was Falgun, because we don't consider that the day begins exactly at midnight, 12, just as the English system is. So it was actually 6th Falgun 1242, that is the Bengali era, or 1757 if we want the Shaka era. That is another way, Vikram Shaka we say. So that is another calendar which Hindus follow. But if you follow the Bengali calendar, it was 1242, 6th of Falgun month. That is the Indian month. And the equivalent was Thursday. So some people consider it to be Wednesday. That's why some some of our devotees consider Wednesday to be a holy day, but according to the English calendar, actually it was Thursday. So if we follow the Tithi, it is Wednesday. If we follow the English calendar, it is Thursday. That was 18th February, 1836. That was his birthday. And the child was born 12 minutes before sunrise. Now, according to the Hindu calendar, if somebody is born just before sunrise, then we consider it to be the previous day. The day begins after sunrise. So that is why he was just born 12 minutes, exactly 12 minutes before sunrise. So that is why it is considered to be Wednesday, whereas it was actually Thursday. If we go according to the English calendar, because much before sunrise, the day begins according to the English calendar. So though it was Thursday, 18th February, according to the Indian calendar, it was Wednesday. This was very auspicious because it was the second lunar day of the bright fortnight of Purva Bhadrapada, the 25th of the lunar constellations. Bhadrapada, Purva Bhadrapada there are several lunar constellations, and the 25th one is Purva Bhadrapada. So it is the auspicious second day, Dvitiya, lunar day of the bright fortnight. That is, the dark fortnight is known as the Krishna Paksha, and the bright fortnight is known as Shukla Paksha. Shukla means white. So the bright fortnight of the moon, of course, obviously. So that had joined at the time of his birth, and that conjunction is considered to be a very fortunate astrological conjunction. It is known as Siddhi Yoga. Yoga means time. The time, the exact Sandhi, that is known as Sandhi Kala. So when Sri Ramakrishna was born, there was this Siddhi Yoga. The 25th of the lunar constellation, Purva Bhadrapada was the nakshatra, and he was born on the second lunar day of that bright fortnight of Shukla Paksha of the month. So that is considered to be a very fortunate astrological conjunction. The sun, the moon, and Mercury had come together in the astrological sign under which the child was born. That is how the astrology considers the auspiciousness of the child, auspiciousness of the birth. Moreover, it says, the horoscope says, Venus, Mars, and Saturn. Saturn is known as Shani. So these three planets were in their highest ascension. So this also indicated that the child who was born at on such a auspicious day and auspicious time would have an extraordinary life. That is what the astrologer said. And it was Shudiram who himself had checked all the calculations, did all the calculations, and found that it was really an auspicious day. And the sage Parashara, who is one of the astrologers or astronomers, his chart also, which used to be consulted by scholars who followed astrology, the chart also showed that the planets Rahu, that is the ascending node, and Ketu, which is the descending node, were at the highest point during the child's birth. So Rahu and Ketu were also favorable. Finally, Jupiter, which was then in its ascending mode, exerted a strong and auspicious influence on the child's destiny. So all the stars, the constellation, the planets, they were in such a wonderful position that even before he started his divine Leela, childhood Divya Bala Leela, his father knew that at such an auspicious time only an incarnation or a great soul will be born. So that is what the astronomical or the astrological signs indicated. Later, some distinguished astrologer, they say, studied the time of his birth and said to Kshudiram that the child has been born during an auspicious arrangement of the planets. So astrological science decisively concluded, they all said, such a person, that is known as Falashruti. Normally, when people consult these, they give, apart from the planetary and the other positions of the stars and constellations, the Falashruti, I mean the Phala, or the result of birth in that particular period, what leads to that, what is the conclusion, and what will be the characteristic or the nature of a person who is born on such a auspicious day and at a auspicious time, that can be calculated, and they can tell very decisively, if the astrological calculations are perfect, whether the person will be religious or what will be his nature. Everything can be roughly ascertained or maybe predicted. So the astrologers and the astronomers who are experts, his father himself was expert, but he consulted a few others, some distinguished astrologers, and they said, the child who is born with this sign in the zodiac and the other planetary positions, he'll be profoundly religious, highly respected, and will be always engaged in virtuous deeds. Then they say he will also live in a temple surrounded by many disciples. He will establish a new religious order. He will be renowned all over the world as a great soul and will be worshipped by people as Narayana himself. So Kshudiram's mind was filled with wonder that, see, even the astronomical calculations supported the vision that he had in Gaya. And he realized with gratitude that the divine dream he had experienced in Gaya, where Vishnu told him, Gadadhar told him that he will be born in his family, has actually come true. After performing the proper birth rites, Kshudiram named the child Shambhu Chandra, because when you name the child, you normally, depending on the auspicious time and the date, you have to name with certain alphabets. So I think Shah was there. So he had to name the child Shambhu Chandra according to the natal sign. So that was the original name given to him. But since he had a wonderful dream in Gaya, he decided to call him, though his name was Shambhu Chandra, he decided to call him Gadadhar. So that was the name with which he was known in his childhood. So here we'll see that if we see Gadadhar's horoscope, the biographer has given a copy of the whole horoscope. They normally draw a diagram. If you see, there are different ways of depicting the Gadadhar's horoscope, which was done by Narayan Chandra Jyotir Bhushana. He was a great astronomer, and his copy of that horoscope prepared by this Narayan Chandra Jyotir Bhushana, who was a great astrologer, has been preserved to this date. So according to that, which was in the possession of Swami Shardanandji, he says the horoscope, or the experts who studied that, will understand that how similar it was to those of Ramchandra, Sri Krishna, Shankara, Chaitanya, and other avatars. Somehow when avatars come, the time, the moment, the day, everything seems to be satisfying certain conditions under which a great soul is born, or a great divine personality is born. So the translation, the original was composed in Sanskrit. I will exactly read what his horoscope said. It may be a bit difficult to understand, but I'll just read verbatim what exactly was written by this great astrologer, Narayan Chandra Jyotir Bhushana. He says, Sri Ramakrishna was born in the year AD 1836. That is according to the English calendar. And he said, on the second day, the Dvitiya of the bright fortnight of the month, Shukla Paksha, when the sun was in the zodiac sign of Aquarius, Kumbha Rashi they call, that is 18th February. That is what is written there. Early in the morning at about 5 a.m. So that is the time when Sri Ramakrishna was born. He says his birth took place when it was Siddhi Yoga. Why it was Siddhi Yoga? Because there was an auspicious union of Shukla Dvitiya with the Purva Bhadrapada Nakshatra. So that's why his natal star, the star under which he was born, is known as Purva Bhadrapada, that is Pigasi. And the 25th lunar mention, that is how they calculate. In his Janma Lagna, that is in his the description, it says the Janma Lagna means the according to his the time and place, and also the date of his birth. It is in the zodiac at the time of his birth, which is the zodiac at the time of his birth. There was the conjunction of 3 planets. As I said before, thus the sun is also considered to be a planet. Surya, Chandra, and Buddha. Buddha is Mercury. So sun, the moon, and Mercury were in a position where all these 3 planets were in a conjoint position. They were conjunction was there. And the 3 other planets, Venus, Mars, and Saturn, Shukra, Mangala, and Shani, they were in exalted position on the 12th, 10th, and 7th houses. That is how they calculate. Again, according to sage Parashara, the planets Rahu and Ketu, the 2 other ascending and descending nodes of the moon, also occupied the highest position, as they were in the 2nd and 8th houses respectively. Jupiter, that is known as Brahaspati, occupied the 3rd house, and so it had a tendency towards ascendancy. Tunga Vilasi meant it was about to ascend. The result of this natal arrangement of the planets is, according to Bhrigu Samhita, that the man becomes the head of a religious movement. He is virtuous, he is highly honored, he always is engaged in doing virtuous deeds, he lives in a temple and gets a large following of disciples. He is called a great man by all because he is born of the spirit of Lord Narayana. He will be worshipped by all. So that is the wonderful horoscope that was made by Narayan Chandra Jyotir Bhushana. He was the person who prepared this horoscope, and that is what Swami Shardanand is quoting here, the English translation of the original horoscope made by this Narayan Chandra Jyotir Bhushana. Now, looking at the face of the beautiful child and hearing of his unique destiny, Shudiram and Chandra considered themselves to be very blessed. Obviously, it confirmed what the visions had told them. The vision that the Lord himself will be born, and then all the other signs, and the astronomical and the astrological indications was that this beautiful child which was born was none other than incarnation, a manifestation of Narayana himself. Therefore, they performed all the ceremonies of naming the child, and then they concentrated on raising the child with special care, because they knew it was the Lord himself who was born. So they had so much faith, not only faith that because of the visions, but because of the timing, because he was, Kshudiram was a great astrologer himself, but he doubly confirmed it by consulting some of the greatest astrologers who were living in that area, and they also confirmed the divine birth of Sri Ramakrishna. So then it is said in the scriptures that whenever that before the child's birth, and the parents of Rama, Krishna, and others, we discussed this before also, and all other divine incarnations, the parents themselves had various spiritual visions. So, however, though they all well knew that the sons were protected by providence, they knew it's the Lord himself who is born in our family, so we don't have to worry. He will, as he had promised, Gadadhar had promised Kshudiram in Gaya when he had gone there. Vishnu himself promised that I will not only be born. And when he said, can we really take care of you? We are householders with very, very ordinary means. So, though the sons, though the children, though this child was protected by providence, they knew the Lord Himself will come with the necessary preparations. But the parental affection caused them to forget this, and they worried about the child's care and upbringing. So, just like Yashoda, though she knew of the divine nature of Sri Krishna also sometimes used to show her visions in which he indicated his divine personality. But she would often forget. She had so much love for the baby Krishna that she would forget and be concerned about a child, about a small baby, as any other mother would do. Every biological mother, though she was not the biological mother of Krishna, but still she was so much concerned, more concerned than perhaps her own mother, biological mother. And she loved uh, Krishna so much that, knowing fully well, having been shown lot of visions by Krishna himself, indicating that he is the divine incarnation, she somehow uh, seemed to forget every time. And they start worrying about the child's care as if he is a human child. The same happened to Shudiram and his wife Chandra Devi. When they first saw Gadadhar's beautiful face, the divine dream at Gaya and the vision in front of the Shiva temple, Jogidar Shiva temple at Kamarpukur, they were almost forgotten, and they began to make various plans, just as any parent would do. They knew we don't have so much of means. So whatever little we have to take care of this child and see that he gets good education, proper food, and proper care is taken. So they just forgot that the Lord has come. So naturally he will come and all the things will be nicely arranged around it. And that is what happened. Somehow Sri Ramakrishna, though he never bothered to earn any money or do anything, he was taken care of by Rani Rasmani, then Mathur Babu. So throughout his life, somebody or the other, divine providence had made provisions for his upbringing and child's proper care. So the news of Gadadhar's birth was sent to the prosperous nephew Ramchand. We have discussed how he used to support the family now and then whenever they needed some financial help. He was kind enough. The prosperous nephew became very rich. So he used to, in Midnapur, and he used to send some money or some things, whatever they needed in times of crisis, they used to approach him. So realizing that the Ramchand, the nephew, realized that since a new child is born there and such a wonderful child has been born, they may have some shortage of milk. There are so many people. So that's why he sent a dairy cow to Kshudiram and relieved him of that particular worry. He was worried that how can I feed? This child needs lot of milk if he has to grow properly. So without even his requesting, Ramchand himself, so that's how Sri Ramakrishna made all arrangements for himself. The newborn child's needs were fulfilled unexpectedly from various sources. You will see as you see the child growing, so many wonderful things happen. This is known as Balya Leela. The first volume of Great Master is the divine birth and the upbringing of child Gadadhar before we come to the Sadhak Bhava, where the sadhana portion of his biography starts. So there was, though these arrangements were being made unexpectedly, somebody would come and supply the family with whatever they needed to take care of Sri Ramakrishna. But still, Kshudiram and Chandra Devi were always anxious about this small child. First of all, they were quite old when the Sri Ramakrishna was born. So they thought, what will happen to this boy? Who will look after him? So day by day, however, the newborn child's influence increased. First, working on his own parents. So they got a lot of hints that this is not an ordinary child. Then slowly started captivating the hearts of the elderly and the younger village women who used to come to their house. This is what happened in Vrindavan also. It is the gopis who were, that young child Krishna was just 14 years old. He began to attract a lot of gopis who were quite older than him. Some were older than Yashoda, most of these gopis. Uh, People do not realize that Sri Krishna was just a young boy. And these gopis were quite, some of them, of course, were young, but most of them were much, much older than Sri Krishna. And it was the maternal affection. They loved Sri Krishna, because they saw some kind of divinity. So it's a pure love based on their recognition of the divine nature of Sri Krishna. Similarly, we see that the elderly and the younger women, the village women, were attracted by this wonderful child. The newborn child's influence, as the astrologer had said, he will be a center of attraction, a great spiritual leader, and lot of people will surround him. So when asked for their visits, they simply replied, these women used to come now and then to see the child. She said, this just used to say, as the gopis said when they visited Yashoda, she was a bit apprehensive. Why so many people are coming and trying to interfere with my child? She didn't want to share her divine child with anybody. She had so much of affection for Sri Krishna. Similarly, they used to just say, we don't know, we just love to see your son. That is why we come. What else can we do? We are forced to come. So that is how Sri Krishna's life also we see the same phenomena. People were just attracted, like the honey attracts the bee. They used to just come without any reason. They could not rest at peace till they saw Gadadhar every day, the small Gadadhar, the child. And they say, what else can we do? We don't know. The moment, every time we get a feeling that we want to see your son. So whenever we get an opportunity, we feel like coming. So women relatives in neighboring villages also frequently visited Shudiram's humble cottage for the same reason. There were other women relatives, not just from Kamarpukur, but from the nearby villages, who also used to come very often. So the newborn child was raised with so much love and care of all the women of the village as well as from other villages, who used to come attracted by his wonderful divine nature. There was a strange kind of attraction which attracted them, and they used to come. So when he was 5 months old, the time came for the rice feeding ceremony. So there is, especially in Bengal, there is a tradition that once you have crossed the 5th month or the 6th month, there is this Annaprasan, as they call. You feed the first time. Before that, the child is normally fed milk or something else, but not solid food. So the first solid food, the grain of rice that is fed, the first grain of rice, cooked rice obviously, is known as Annaprasan. So the time had come, 5 months passed, and the lot of women used to come and try to take loving care of, just to see Gadadhar, they used to come. But now the time had passed and almost 5 months had passed. So the time had come for Annaprasan. So at first Shudiram planned to arrange the rice feeding ceremony according to his means. So he thought, let me perform the scriptural rites. And he would finish the ceremony, just a simple ceremony, because he knew that I can't invite many people. I don't have any means. If they come, I'll have to feed them. Where will I get money? So I'll just do a quiet puja. According to the Shastras, I'll do the puja, offer the food to Raghuvir, consecrate it, and then feed the child with the prasad. So he just planned to invite only a few close relatives. But somehow the divine play was such that the whole event took a different turn. Dharmadas Laha was a very wealthy village landlord of Kamarpukur, and he was Shudiram's great friend. He secretly invited a lot of Brahmins to visit Shudiram. The Brahmins joyfully insisted that Shudiram feed them all on that auspicious occasion. So he said that if I tell him, he will not accept money, he will not even arrange. But he told all the Brahmins, the friends of Kshudiram, to go and say that we also used like to come. So this request, when all these people came for this, telling Kshudiram that we also would like to be invited and come, it put Kshudiram in a very awkward position. He could not say that, no, I don't have the means. He was loved and respected by all these Brahmins in the village as well as outsiders. So he could not decide, now how many shall I invite? He did not know whom to invite and whom to leave out. But he could not afford definitely to entertain everyone, feed them. There used to be a uh, method how they had to entertain, good food, then some dakshina, some cloth. So he didn't have the means to organize such a big event. So he was thinking of doing it quietly, inviting only a few close relatives. But now, because they themselves pressed, they said no. And that was Dharmadas Laha's idea actually. He wanted to have a grand function because he also felt that Sri Krishna was a special child. Why can't we all come together and have a big function, big ceremony? So he just, Kshudiram was really worried, how will I feed all these people? So he just prayed to the Lord Raghuveer and said, now you decide, you find a solution. I've been depending on you. It is your problem now. You have to solve this problem for me. So he surrendered himself totally to the Lord and then went and consulted Dharmadas Laha. He didn't know that Dharmadas had planned this. Anyway, upon learning of his friend's good intention, Kshudiram handed over the responsibility of the function to Dharmadas and returned home. So when Dharmadas said, why do you worry? I'm here. I'll make all arrangements, but you have to feed. All let people come. Let this be a grand event. So he thought it is the Lord who has arranged all these things. So he just relaxed and went home, knowing fully well that Dharmadas could feed any number of Brahmins or relatives and anybody who had come for this. So it was a very grand ceremony arranged for the Annaprasan or the birth of Gadadhar. So Dharmadas cheerfully arranged the whole ceremony, spending his own money for most of it. The event went off smoothly. We heard, so the biographer says, Swami Shardanji says, that during Gadadhar's rice feeding ceremony, village people of all castes came. Normally, they would invite certain communities and castes, especially Brahmins. But there was no restriction. Dharmadas Laha himself was not a Brahmin, but because of he had arranged, he invited everybody. So all castes came, Brahmins came. So it was a coincidence that such a wonderful harmony of castes took place. Not that his father was not orthodox, he was very orthodox. He would not eat from people of other castes. But somehow it was divinely ordained that all caste restrictions were broken. And everybody joyfully partook of Raghuveer's prasad at Kshudiram's cottage. Many beggars also enjoyed the food, and even beggars came. Not only people of low caste, but even beggars came, and they all came and had a sumptuous uh, dinner and prasad, and then they all prayed for Gadadhar's long life and for his welfare. They all blessed. Even the lowest of caste, beggars, anybody and everybody. Dharmadas Laha was so liberal that it was divinely ordained that such a wonderful rice eating Annaprasan ceremony would be arranged. So everything was divinely ordained and things started happening. Things started happening naturally without any prior planning. Then Kshudiram understood that it is the divine Lord himself who is arranging all these things. And when the Lord comes, as Sri Ramakrishna used to wonderfully, nicely say, now suppose one day a king suddenly decided to visit a ordinary citizen in the kingdom. So he knew that he didn't have the means to entertain the king. So the king himself sent a lot of ministers and other people to make all arrangements so that he is received nicely. So similarly, Sri Ramakrishna said, when God comes, he comes with all his people. Dharmadas Laha, Rani Rasmani, Mathurnath Biswas, who all supported the divine Leela. He didn't have to ask for help. Shudiram also did not have to ask for. All these events took place in a grand way without any worry for Shudiram, though they had worried, thinking that how can we arrange this. So as the days went by, every little act of Gadadhar, if you see, whether it is the Annaprasan, the very birth itself was divine. Like Christ was born in a manger, he was also born in a hut near the and was smeared with ashes. So such, even in spite of such a humble birth, his Gadadhar was very, Providence looked after him so nicely. And after that, you will find after the Annaprasan, every little act, right from childhood, of Gadadhar appeared to be even sweeter now to Chandra Devi. And her heart was filled with so much joy that this child has brought so much to our family. We were unnecessarily worried. And see how nicely the arrangements are being made. So she had been eager not to ask any favor from the gods. But now she prayed for her son's welfare innumerable times. She had decided the Lord himself is coming. So why should I bother? Why should I worry about his welfare? But still, because of her attachment to her child, because she was the biological mother, she felt that I should also pray. She never prayed for her own welfare, but she prayed for the child's welfare. Innumerable times she used to pray to different gods and goddesses, see that my child doesn't suffer. So both consciously, unconsciously, this prayer was always there. Her motherly heart was not free from anxiety, just as Yashoda would to worry, knowing fully well that Sri Krishna was able to handle his destiny himself. So many things happened in the childhood. He was saved, not only saved, but he uh, did so many miracles. So it was not that Yashoda did not know the greatness of Sri Krishna, but somehow the Lord made them forget, and that is why she became, her motherly heart, filled with motherly love for Sri Ramakrishna. Her heart was preoccupied with her son's care and well-being. And those concerns which eclipsed the power of her divine visions. Though she had visions, she was convinced that this is a divine child. But her motherly love was so powerful that uh, it preoccupied her. Her mind was preoccupied with lot of anxiety, concern. So she started praying because physically they could not do much. They did not have the means to look after his welfare. So she started praying. So yet from time to time during this Balya Leela, the divine power of Sri Ramakrishna would display itself to a slight degree, and her mind would be filled with respect and sometimes with an apprehension that uh, everybody is liking is uh, looking, anxious to meet my son. Will some unseen evil might befall on this child? If everybody seems to have this kind of love, then she was a bit cautious. They say when if some child or somebody is inordinately loved by the mother and all the relatives, something evil happens. So there were so many superstitions. She also had her own superstition. Sometimes she used to fear, why is so much attention being given to this child? I hope that all the people who come to see him, because of their attachment, nothing serious helps, no evil befalls my son. So, in this connection, uh, there is a wonderful incident which Swami Shardanandji quotes, where she had a peculiar vision, and that showed how much of concern, how much of anxiety, how much of love her motherly heart had. Though she knew it was the Lord himself, all the visions that she had, but still she was apprehensive and she felt that something untoward might happen in her life. So we'll discuss that incident in our next class. We'll conclude now. If there are some questions, if somebody would like to ask some questions, we'll just take. Otherwise, we will conclude today. So the next Sunday class would be on the gospel. But after the Sunday after that, I will see. Yes, I might still take a class because I'm going to Newcastle and Scotland. There were the two programs. The Newcastle program is on Friday. So our Friday anyway, we don't have a class. It is Friday evening, Saturday evening and Sunday evening. Saturday I'll be in Edinburgh in Scotland, or maybe I'll be in Newcastle. But anyway, I'll take the evening class, and the Sunday class also will be held as usual. I'm coming back on Sunday morning, so the classes will be there. Not next Sunday. Next Sunday, of course, we have the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. So the Great Master would be held after that. So I'll take your leave now. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.